You're listening to the IB4E Coaching Podcast.
Brought to you by IB4E Coaching, business coaching for executives, entrepreneurs, and small business professionals. Learn more at ib4e-coaching.com.
Hey, Coach Harlan here. Welcome back to the podcast. Hope you're having an outstanding week. I'm having a great week, and I'm excited to introduce you to my guest today. Please help me welcome John Rittenberg. John Rittenberg is a brand strategist and storyteller who's helped companies like GoPro, Nat Geo, and Discovery turn content into growth. After managing content ops at Red Bull TV and TikTok, he moved into B2B, working with top startups to build thought leadership and social programs that drive real business results. Today, John runs his own agency, REVERB, focused on helping founders and startups build audiences and develop effective distribution strategies. John, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me, Coach.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Thought leadership. Why is thought leadership so important? And why should companies include that in their business strategies?
So it's a great question. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I listened to a couple episodes and I was really excited to come on here. Um, so what we're seeing now in terms of um, technology in the way products are being shaped is that the technological moat to create something fantastic, to create the newest Airbnb, to create the newest Duolingo, these platforms, this actual expertise is being lowered by things like AI and uh, what they call vibe coding or no code platforms. We're really seeing a time where anyone can really create anything. So it used to be that, you have the best development team, a company has the best development team or the best experts, and no one can really replicate that because you can't replicate expertise. But now we're seeing that, there's this that moat has decreased. So what we think about with thought leadership is how are we activating all of the people and all of the channels you have at your disposal. So when we think about a company or a company's marketing strategy, it's not only about the company itself. It's not only about the founding team or the leadership. It's about everybody. We need all of these channels to be successful. So thought leadership, starting with the founders of the company or the people that need to have a voice, but trickling all the way down, into the middle management or into the, entry level or employees. It's really important now that we drive the conversation. We're having more of these conversations. People are trusting brands less. They're trusting, they don't really care what the Nikes or the Kellogg's or the Netflixes. They care less about what these brands have to say, but they care more about what the people behind them have to say. And this is where thought leadership comes into play. So we're seeing that people want to buy from people. People want to hear from people directly, increase in authenticity. And the marketing unit has shifted from the company's brand itself to the people. And this is part of a company's brand. It's part of you have a individual brand which is filtering or funneling into the company brand itself. But it's just sort of the way things are moving in marketing, social media is that personal brands, thought leadership has become actually more important than the company or corporation itself.
Nice. Yeah, you're right. People are interested in what the owners of these businesses think and do, and their social stance and everything like that. So, yeah, I can see that. Very cool. There's so much to go into, and I've got a ton of questions that I want to get through because I find all this stuff fascinating. But before we get started, I've got 10 questions that I ask every one of my guests. Listeners know these are the questions made famous on the TV show Inside the Actors Studio, where the host James Lipton asks these very same questions of his Hollywood guests from TV, film, and stage. And I always figured if they're good enough for the Hollywood elite, they're certainly good enough for my guests. So, John, if you're ready, 10 questions for you, sir.
Let's do it.
Question number one, what is your favorite word?
Okay, I'm not sure if this is, and I have a few, but the one that comes to mind that I'll start with is I'm not actually sure if it's a word, but I love this word, undubiously. It's like dubious meaning, maybe like a doubtful
Right.
or with doubt, but undubiously saying without a doubt, it's completely clear. Um, I like the word uncouth. Should I stop
Yeah.
with one, or should I give you?
Go ahead and give a couple of them. Yeah, that's fine.
Um, I like the word uncouth. It
Uncouth.
means, sort of like less than or less than ideal. So there's a quote that says like a man camping never sleeps with his socks next to his head because it's uncouth. Um, I like that word. I like the word fantastic. I think that this is a fun word to use. So I'm doing a lot of writing. I spend a lot of time, creating content and copywriting. So my relationship with words is, I love them. I love to use them, and I love to see which ones are the most unique.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, then. What is your least favorite word?
It's a great question. I would say the word should. I should do something, or you should, or why shouldn't
Right.
why didn't or why shouldn't this happen for a couple of reasons. One, because I don't believe that anything, you know, should happen. To me, it's black and white. It either is happening or it's not happening, right? And so if I beat myself up about things that I should have done, then this is where I can get myself in trouble mentally and emotionally. I also don't like to tell people what to do. You should do this or you shouldn't be doing this. I think that, we should let people figure things out on their own. So I think that this is a word I try and stay away from.
Good. Very good. And I think isn't Tony Robbins that said you should never should on yourself, right? Stop shoulding on yourself. Because yeah, we use that as kind of a placeholder for things we want to do, but are either too afraid to do them or something like that. Yeah. If you want to do it, do it. Either do or don't do. All right. Question three. What turns you on?
I think there's a couple things I would say. I really like irreverence. So things that don't make sense individually, but when you put them together, they do make sense. I have a really dry sense of humor, dark sense of humor. So, when and like just this juxtaposition of, only that the human brain can do. I think that this is really cool. Also, I think positive feedback. When someone says, I had a client, they gave some positive feedback about the style that we use to support them. And, one of them said the other day, we want to meet you. We're coming into town and we want to meet you and we have a gift for you. So I think that this, positive reinforcement versus negative can allow for someone to exceed expectations and work harder.
Very cool. All right. What turns you off?
I would say unnecessary negativity. I heard a really great quote from Evan Spiegel. He's the CEO of Snapchat. I was listening to a podcast that he was on, and he said something really interesting. He said that when we figure out that we don't hire people that are mean, and if we figure out that someone's mean, we fire them. And this is because we've come to the understanding that if you're not smart enough to know that being mean won't get you as far as being nice does, then we actually don't think you're smart enough to work here at this company. So they'll just get rid
Agree.
of people that, have a negative approach or are mean, unnecessarily mean, because they just think that it's a sign of low intelligence.
Totally agree. Love that. All right. What sound or noise do you love?
I'll give you a couple for this one. I think in the morning, just pausing and listening to the birds chirping outside of your apartment or your house or wherever you live, just taking in, that the world is bigger than just you and just listening to that. I love the sound of a deck of playing cards when you're shuffling them, when you do that bridge and you're hearing that. I love that as well.
Nice. All right. What sound or noise do you hate?
I think like nails scratching comes to mind, or like nails on a chalkboard, some type of friction that that's like like anything that's gonna make me cringe, I think.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. That'll do it. Question seven. What is your favorite curse word?
There's one that I heard recently that I think is really great. It's a British term. I don't know if it's a curse word, it's more of an insult, but they call people that are like, lame people. They call them like wet wipes. And I think that's pretty funny. So calling someone, he's just a wet wipe,
There you go.
kind of like a baby or something like that.
Okay. I like that. That's new for me. That's good. I like that. All right. Question eight. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Hmm. So, going on the theme of the actor's studio, so I do improv comedy as a hobby, performing and practicing, and I never thought of it as a career, but if uh, if I could dedicate more time to that, and acting is something that I really like to do. You know, Especially improv comedy where you don't really have to rehearse anything. You're sort of making things up on the spot. If I had to choose something off the top of my head, I think it would be that.
Nice. And what profession would you not like to do?
So I come from a sales background. Part of my background is, I would say, 60-70% marketing. The other is 20-30% sales. And although I like doing sales, I just think that something about your your position, you're being forced to sell. And having a quota and having to make a certain headway each quarter, I think that can be pretty stressful. I think when you're not forced to sell, like I think there's an art to selling, but I think someone saying, "Hey, you got to make us 100K, by August," I think that can be pretty tough, and I just don't want to
Yeah,
do that.
I'm with you there. Absolutely. All right, John, final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I think just trying to come from a modest perspective, and just you treated people well to the best of your ability. Just that within my own domain, I did the best that I could. Not saying that everyone doesn't have good days and everyone doesn't have bad days, but for the most part, more good days
Yeah.
than bad days, and more days treating people well on a daily basis than, snapping at people. And I've been there. I've
Yep.
had moments
Oh,
where
yeah.
I've get frustrated, but I think in general, keeping a very composed, um, keeping composure and level level emotions for the most part.
Nice. Yeah, I don't expect to be on the leaderboard, but I hope that I'm on the positive side, anyways, right? So,
Exactly.
absolutely. Good job. All right, John, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about um, thought leadership. We're going to talk more about branding and why that's important for businesses. What inspired you to start Reverb? And at some point, we're going to transition into courage and leadership. All right.
Great.
Cool. All right, listeners, we're going to be talking about all of that and probably more right after this. So stick with us. And I'm back with my guest, John Rittenberg. John, thanks again for coming on the program. We met through Eli, Libby, right? Eli and Kyle.
That's correct. Yep.
Awesome. How do you know them?
So I actually connected with Eli on LinkedIn. I saw that he was doing something cool in the retreat space, so I sent him a connection, and we've been chatting ever since, sending each other um, opportunities, both directions, and he's put me in touch with a lot of great people. So, this is part of a thought leadership motion where you're being active on the internet and getting in touch with people, making friends. It's hard to do, it takes some effort, but if you can do it well and figure it out, it does have benefits.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good guys. Like those guys. So you had stints at TikTok, Red Bull, GoPro, big brand names that everybody knows. How did those experiences shape your approach to thought leadership and social strategy?
Yeah, so I had the privilege of, right out of the gate, of graduating college, I was working for Discovery Channel. My first job ever was for National Geographic, and I was really exposed to a lot of creativity, where creativity was sort of the expectation that if you walk in the door of one of these places, working for TikTok, working for Red Bull, that you were one of the best uh, digital marketers, or at GoPro, some of the best uh, extreme athletes who could create content. And so I was exposed to a lot of programs and ways of thinking about content that probably most people don't get the chance to see. For example, how do we get the best out of GoPro content creators, people that are just filming with their cameras? How do we make this Red Bull event? How do we capture the essence of it and translate that into a TV program that's going to run for an hour? So kind of like really big picture thinking in terms of content. And while a lot of people, they're thinking about how do I make the best video of myself? How do I record the best podcast like we're doing now?
Hmm.
I was thinking about large audiences from a very early on and how to cater to that audience. What type of data are we looking at? And I think that helped me shape an understanding of what works, what doesn't work, and also playing very close to those metrics and following along and always thinking about audience first and how do we get our message to them?
Absolutely. Audience first. Love that. What inspired you to start Reverb? And then how does that differ from the traditional like marketing approach?
Yeah, so I started this company about 2 years ago, and I was in a bit of a transition period. I had just finished working 2 years at a software company. I was selling a security product, a digital security product, and I was really interested. This is coming off of a marketing background from TikTok prior, and I was really interested in going back to this idea of marketing, and I thought about it and I said, what is something that really, what am I really interested in career-wise? And the thing that I kept spinning around was, helping people build personal brands, helping people translate their expertise from basically creating a funnel from their minds onto the internet. And really working as like a consultant and bringing out the best in people. Like that was the idea. It's like, how do you, like, I have this idea of like I really want to help people bring the best out of themselves. I understand that they don't have time to do that. So that was sort of the initial kernel. And the question was, okay, well, is there a company that will hire you to do this? Like, is this a job? Is there a job that exists that someone sort of manages, not only the company's branding in the company's social media channel, but also the people within it? Is there someone that, like, is there a job for this? And at the time, 2 years ago, there wasn't, and I don't think there still is today. I don't think this exists as sort of like an individual contributor within a company. There's agencies that do it, like my agency. So the answer was no, nobody's going to hire you to do this. I said, okay, well, what if I just started my own sort of solopreneur, small agency,
Mhm.
and I approached people to help them with their social media on an individual basis, as well as company. Do I think that someone would pay me for that? And I didn't know. So um, I I started this, I started talking about it. And actually the company, what I was doing at first, I was doing a lot of CVs. Like I was helping friends and people like that I knew. I was helping with the like personal branding in this way. And then I was talking to people about, I'm helping with social media and digital and things like that. And two of my friends, actually, both CEOs of businesses, they asked if I would not help them with their CVs, if I would help them with their social media,
Nice.
their personal social media as well as the company. And, they were paying a lot more than I was getting from helping people with a CV. And so after I got those first two clients, I was sort of, it proved the concept. And then I started working on theirs. And these were, you know, very small contracts, like almost for free. And it's a very far away from where, my business is positioned now.
Mhm.
But it was the validation that I needed and gave me confidence to start reaching out to other startups and businesses and CEOs. And, somebody takes a chance on you.
Sure.
Look, again, you're starting with very low prices. You're saying, hey, like for $500 a month, can I manage your LinkedIn page? And the price is kind of too good for them to pass up at the time. So, you're accumulating these relationships at a very low cost, and then, you're getting referred, and then it turns into an actual business with headcount and
Nice.
you need to hire people. And so that's how it started.
Nice. Yeah, the validation, the proof of concept, and then you're off and running. Very cool.
Definitely.
Um, and I think I saw on your website the octopus model. Can you talk a little bit about that? What is the octopus model and how does that benefit a company?
Yes, definitely. So I actually just spoke about this at Monday.com. I was a keynote speaker for
Nice.
for them. So when you think about like a company's sort of digital infrastructure, you have a company website, you have their LinkedIn company page, you have their digital assets. But the key is driving traffic to these places. So traffic doesn't just stumble upon your website. People don't just find you out of nowhere. The same with like a company page or a company Instagram or something like this. So what we do is we position the people in the company as sort of those tentacles of the octopus. So the company itself is the octopus head, and
Okay.
then the people themselves are the tentacles. So they're bringing things into the head, and the head is controlling. So the head is controlling the tentacles, and things are coming in both directions, bidirectional. So the initiatives and messaging of the company goes through those people, but they also have their own sort of perspective. And one tentacle might grab, a piece of seaweed off the ocean floor and bring it in. Another one might grab a fish. Another one might grab, a rock or something like that. So all of them have different perspectives, and they all work together to kind of create a ecosystem. So the octopus itself is the growing, living, breathing, really, an entity of its own, which is the ecosystem of a business.
And so you help these companies set up that ecosystem and then teach how to run it, or do you maintain control of running that ecosystem?
So something as complicated as that, you can always do both. We can always tell you how to do it and you can execute it yourself. But running something as complicated as, let's say, a 10-person marketing initiative that involves the company itself as well as 5 to 10 other people within the company, like this is usually something that nobody within the company has time for. They're already doing their own initiatives. So in most cases, we run this motion. We come in and we manage this motion. So the key thing is that when people are speaking about a motion like this, which is called employee advocacy, they're saying, okay, well, we need to activate all of the people within this, let's say, 30-person startup. Like they all need to have or 50-person startup. They all need to have a voice, and we need to activate all of them. We've actually found that doesn't work. So what we do is we say, we're going to run some workshops, and we're going to give everybody the tools they need to be successful on social media or on digital, whichever channels you prefer. But we're going to teach you the best strategy behind it. Then we run a bit of a POC for a couple, maybe a month, month and a half. And we see that what we're looking for is signals of who are the people that actually want to be doing this. Besides the CEO, CTO, CMO, the people that have to be kind of doing it, but who else is getting excited about, creating thought leadership and sharing their expertise? And then we pinpoint those people. It's probably 3 to 5 people within a fifty person company. And we further encourage them and give them the tools. So that's sort of the motion that we run. We're sort of giving everybody the opportunity, and then we're making a smaller sort of super group of experts that can speak on behalf of themselves and on behalf of the company. And then we're continuing to provide them the tools. So the idea isn't, hey, we have this company and everybody has to have a voice within it. The idea is, hey, let's figure out who actually wants to have a voice and then give them everything they need to be a genius, poet, all-star for this company or for themselves, and really learn this sort of trade of, you know, influence and persuasion, but also mainly having a voice that can solve someone else's problems at the end of the day.
Very cool. Very cool. And then today, how crucial is it for a founder, right, entrepreneur, executive, to have that personal brand? And what kind of steps would you coach them on to take to make sure they set up that personal brand, but do it authentically, right? Not just some made up um, uh, avatar, right?
Yeah, so right now I mean, it's essential. So if you're not building trust with your audience, um, then you're really missing out on a huge part of marketing. As we're seeing now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, it's that distribution and getting your idea or your tool or whatever it is into the hands of your audience. That's the challenging part. Building, creating, this isn't hard anymore. People can create an app within a matter of hours. The hard thing is adoption, user adoption and retention. So one of the best ways of doing that is to have your founder or your founding team sharing their expertise in a public way. This is kind of what's called build in public.
Okay.
Your question on how do you get started? How does one approach this? So, I think it's just sort of like a step function, starting with like sharing one piece of expertise per week. So let's use an example of LinkedIn for B2B, which is, very common. This is where a lot of our customers want to become seen and well known, but it could be any other channel. It could be X, it could be Instagram, it could be having a newsletter, it could be building a WhatsApp community. Um, but the key is getting started. And the difference between 0 and 1 is massive. So to go from not speaking about what you're doing to sharing one post per week or one piece of content per week about, the audience, your customer or your audience's frustration, it makes a world of a difference. So to any founder, um, it's really the recommendation of let's start with one and see how it goes. Let's start by talking about one thing that might be frustrating your customer or your audience. Let's talk about one of those things. Let's do one and see how it feels. And if it feels okay, let's continue that process one per week, getting your expertise out. Um, so the best place to start is with your whoever it is, your audience or your customer, with their frustration. So let's say you're a tradesperson and your customer is you know, you're a plumber or someone that delivers some type of service. So what the easiest place to start is what is your customer's frustration? Well, um, uh, if it's someone who is providing a service that is what do you call? someone who let's take an exterminator, right? So an
Okay.
exterminator's
Yep.
audience is someone who has a bug problem. So what
Okay.
is this customer thinking about? They're thinking about how often they need to hire someone to come and insulate their home from bugs
Mhm.
and things like that. So this problem is that they always have to be thinking about it. But what if I could tap into that frustration and say, hey, isn't it a pain in the ass that you always have to be thinking about the winter months and then the summer and how it's going to change? So speaking about this and your audience automatically relates to it. So
Right.
start there. Start with what do we know is a frustration and how can I speak to that and create that one piece of content and let it fly.
Nice. Yeah, Jesse Cole. I don't know if you're familiar with the Savannah Bananas, the baseball team. His big thing is fans first, right? Just like you said, customer first, and removing any friction, anything that causes friction or pain or anxiety for your clients. If you can take that away. So, like you said, I have to worry about, is it time to do this? Is it time to do that? How often do I have to do it? When are the bugs going to come back? Another thing that I hear from a lot of my clients is the security, having your people come into my house. Am I safe with them in my house? And can I allow these people in? That's a big concern for them. So I could see talking about, we do background checks. All of our guys are clear, whatever. I think that would be good. So yeah, I think that is important. And that should come from the business owner or the head of that department, right? It's not would you say it's more effective coming from the business owner than it would be from just a salesperson?
Well, I think that it's more relatable. So it's harder to relate to a brand than it is to a person who's echoing that frustration. If I say to you, "Hey, coach, like, isn't it really difficult to edit these videos that you that you create?" So I could say, look, I'm in content as well. I shoot video, I record people. It can take me, 6 hours to edit one podcast episode, and you immediately relate to me because you have
Mhm.
the same problem as well. It's not as direct when a brand is saying it because you feel like you're getting sold to, right?
Right,
Even
right.
though it's my company and I have a video editing software, when I'm still sharing to you the frustration, it sort of lowers that boundary of sales. So, and that's the idea with marketing. The best
Mhm.
marketing is the one where you don't feel like you're getting sold to. It's the one
Right.
where you feel like someone just kind of swoops in and solve your problem. I have an example. This
Sure.
past week, I had to figure out something with like cross-border payments and these things and a friend was going through the same thing and he recommended a company that just at that it was the exact moment where I needed it. And
Nice.
this is a form of marketing whether we think about it or not, but it's a word of mouth marketing, right? So I needed something, my friend was going through the same thing and it was just like a light switch. It's as simple as that. So by using thought leadership and by building a personal brand, you're able to be there for someone at the right time versus feeling like, um, software XYZ is always hitting me with ads. It's more organic. So we see this work really well with influencer marketing in the B2C space. So influencer marketing is working really, really well. People do respond to it positively. It's one of the only forms of marketing that's actually working because we see that there's ad fatigue. People are tired of looking at ads. If I see
Right.
sponsored above something, then I'm less likely to click on it. But the question is, okay, so we know this works in B2C. We know that, like if I get a bunch of people that can do video testimonials of my company, they say, hey, your XYZ service provider was great. Here's a photo before and after. This works great. But the
Mhm.
question is, does this work for B2B as well? And it's a little bit more difficult because for B2B, you have much longer sales cycles. Um, you have a buying committee versus a single person who's purchasing it.
Most of the time.
So
Yep.
this is
Yep.
where thought leadership really shines because instead of having you can't really pay someone to say, hey, this SaaS product worked really well, and you should buy it, because then they're sort of, you can't have, they can't do anything else. They're sort of vendor locked to you. So this is why we say, promote from within. So become domain experts from within your business. Use the channels that work for you, because B2B and B2C, they're just such completely different. I mean, they're night and day in terms of a buying process. So we're trying to apply this sort of influencer model into the B2B space and say, we need people to be talking about it. And we can't really keep hiring people to talk about it that, that they're not like lifestyle influencers. You're
Right.
you're using this like let's say Grammarly, for example, like, or something like that. You're not really going to hire like a someone like a fashion influencer or a lifestyle influencer. You need a tech influencer. So, but what if your own people were speaking about this from a positive light, and not only just the company itself, but sharing their expertise on how they're using different tools and whatnot.
Nice. And when you talk about referrals, there's that halo effect. If you trust this person that's referring this business or this person, a little bit of that trust kind of rubs off on this person. You give them a break. Or if it's a even if it's a name you haven't heard before, if you trust this person, you like their advice, and they say, hey, here's somebody I can fully recommend, right? It kind of shines a good light on them, and you're more trusting to bring that person in.
Yeah, and I think the thing that is a bit I think the one of the things that I hear the most when we're first starting out is how much time it does take to build that trust. So, you know, um, I think you can see an example of this is when you get a cold outreach, right? When someone messages you out of the blue on a platform like LinkedIn or Gmail, and they say, "Hey, you know." without any introduction, right? It's like a cold outreach. Um, I'm doing a lot of cold outreach, hypothetically cold outreach, and I mark these things as spam. Like, it goes right to my when someone sends me an email or messages me and I don't know them, I'm marking it as spam, or I'm blocking it, or whatever. So when we approach people online, we really need to give them time. We really need to say, like, hey, this isn't going to be I'm going to start building up my personal brand and thought leadership. And within 3 months, I'm going to be able to have all this business coming in. It's really more of a lifetime play, right? So I'm starting this process. It's going to take a very long time, but after a couple years, or let's say like 1 year is kind of like the sweet spot where you're going to start seeing things actually turn around. But it does take time to build trust. It does take time to build a reputation. So if you expect that all of a sudden people are going to start trusting you and doing what you want them to do, when you haven't put in that time or given something,
Right.
then it's you're probably going to be surprised. So there's a way of doing things where you make a connection with someone, you keep giving to them, share with them that you like something that they did, share with them that you related to something that they did, a few weeks later, like, and keep try to be their friend and try to learn about that. And then, after a couple months, you can say, hey, look, we've been talking about all these common things, and it seems like I might be able to help you. Would you be interested in hopping on a 15-minute call? This is like a modern sales approach. This is
Right.
a nuanced sales approach where you're building trust in a relationship. And look, you still want something. There's still a motivation in the end, but it feels less like a sales process because I'm
Yeah.
actually putting in my time. And that's the currency
Yep.
in sales. It's time and trust and relationship building. And I think that with everything getting sped up with AI and all these different tools, this is going to become even more important than it is right now.
Yeah. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves is the people who say, hey, I would love to connect. And the minute you connect, you get this blast, email marketing. I sell you this, say that. It's like, take time to get to know who I am. Listen to, things that I say, comment on it. We'll chat back and forth and stuff, but don't introduce yourself and then sell me something, right? You got to build
Right. So
that trust.
the key here is that you're not saying don't sell to me.
Right.
That's
I
you're
know you're
not
going to sell. That's why
yeah,
you're connecting. I understand that.
yeah, you're not saying that. What you're saying is give me a minute to
Sure.
figure out if you have something that I need. And that takes weeks.
Hmm.
Um, I've had a lot of experiences where someone's tried to sell me something very fast and they get very upset when I don't respond in the affirmative and I say, I don't even know you.
Yeah.
You came to me from the internet. Like, uh we had one call. Like you're the one who wanted to have the call. And when I say I want to think about it or give me time, I find that they get upset. And
Hmm.
this is sort of giving, marketing and sales a bad reputation. This is why we're in this place where we are because, it's so much instant gratification, instant reward versus like, hey, actually, the relationships do matter here.
And I think that's why, it used to take what, 7, 8 touch points with somebody. Now it's 40, 50 touch points. I mean, you really have to take time because we're being bombarded by these requests. So yeah,
Look,
I can
if
see
I
that.
if I get an unsolicited email, I'm not even engaging with it. LinkedIn, I will probably maybe read it, but if you're sending me like a block of text, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
read it no matter what it is.
And speaking of LinkedIn, didn't you say in one of your posts that you're against scheduling posts on LinkedIn? You'd rather have um, either fresh or even right real time engagement with people. Why is that?
Um, I'm not exactly sure which post you're referring to, but um, so what we do is we build frameworks and strategies. Um, we're not saying that you need to do anything at a certain time, but we're sort of saying like, okay, like you need to talk about something, and within this framework of what your audience finds interesting, how do we get that out? So, um, what we're doing is we're building this sort of like thought leadership pipeline of expertise. And a lot of this stuff is, unplanned, unscheduled, like you said. Uh it doesn't come out of like a manufacturing. Um I can give you an example. So I was in a meeting at a venture capital firm. They're a client that we work with. We manage their social media channels for the firm itself and we build strategies for the founders and the principals of the firm. And someone said something really offhanded to another one. They said, if you keep running up and down the stairs, maybe we'll have more companies to invest in. And I immediately said, what do you mean? What is that? And then the guy who they were talking about, they said, yep, every day I run up and down the stairs. It's my daily exercise. I stopped at a floor to catch my breath, and I noticed a suite for a company I wasn't familiar with. So I came back to the office. I asked if we knew them. They said we didn't, and so we scheduled a meeting with them to see who they were,
Nice.
and they were announcing the investment into that company. So this is a thought leadership story because it's unique, it's authentic, it's coming out of nowhere. It's making you pause and say, "Hey, what is that? Like, what do you mean?" Anytime you say, "Wait, what?" This is a great, you know, indicator. So when we created the announcement strategy of this investment that they were investing into this company, we used that story. That's the story we led with. The exact post, it said, usually deals happen in the boardroom, but this one started in the staircase of the building. This
Hmm.
post went viral that he published. So it
Nice.
reached over 10,000 people. And what happened here is that it created an inbound cycle for them. So all of a sudden, they have more startups reaching out to them saying, hey, I saw your post. I'd be interested in taking a call with you. And so this is the power of sort of that authenticity and that expertise. And it didn't come from saying, hey, I need to schedule something to do. It just came from a regular conversation. So I like to say that the best content comes from the walk. It happens on the walk from the front door of the office into the conference room. Great. Like what you talk about inside of the conference room, that's important. But the real
Mhm.
nuggets, the really interesting things that turns into authentic, I understand who this person is, I understand where they're coming from, that happens before and after the meeting. And so,
Absolutely.
um, like when I do a lot of recording of calls, I do a lot of asking a lot of very simple questions. But this is where the genius of a real expert comes out. It's in those side conversations, the kind of gossipy stuff is really what is the best for content.
Yeah, those hallway conversations. Absolutely. Very cool. So courage. We talk about courage on the program. Where did you find the courage to leave the comfort zone or the safety net of your 9 to 5 job to create your own success? Where did that happen for you? What was the impetus for starting Reverb?
Hmm. I think that, I when I think back to that time when I started this company, I just remember thinking to myself that there's just got to be a better way. I'm working a lot of hours for another company. I'm stressed out all the time. I'm trying to make these sales quotas, and you know, this isn't really how I want to be spending all of my time. I want more freedom. Um, I want to be talking to more interesting people. I want to be, diving into technology in different areas. And I think the courage came from saying, well, whatever it is, it's probably going to be better than what you're doing now, you know? Um, and can you take a risk for 6 months to 9 months to see how things might go and figure it out? And also coupled with the fact is, do you actually have something that you think would give value to someone? And I think that this is the biggest piece of what I offer now. And I was thinking about this today. It's, you know, we're we're building businesses around ourselves, and this is why personal brand is so important. Um, my company, it's based on me. We're making X amount of revenue or whatever because of my leadership and my ability to speak eye level with a CEO of a large company or a startup or someone who's a domain expert, which I'm not. I'm not a domain. I know a bit about cybersecurity. I know a bit about fintech. I know a bit about medtech, but I'm not an expert in these. I'm an expert in communication and helping people tell their stories and branding, storytelling, things like that. That's my expertise. So, am I confident enough in myself that I can actually help someone do this? And that's really where the source of the business comes from. That's sort of the DNA. Anyone can be a social media consultant or a digital consultant, but the thing that sets someone apart is, do you have a unique ability that, that can be used or you can lend to somebody else?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Anybody can do that, but they don't all have the courage to do it. Was that something innate? Is that something you got from your family? Is that something you learned from a friend or a professor, colleague?
I think you do as an entrepreneur, you have to have a certain level of self-confidence. And I
Mhm.
and I think it's just something you have internally. You're able to um, sort of lead a conversation or drive an initiative or something like that. I don't think it I don't think that everyone has this ability within them. I think it's, something that you're brought up brought up, looking after other people or having some type of creativity. And I think that when the certain circumstances arise, that this trait goes from being dormant to being expressed. So for me, I was always confident. I was always sometimes more, I would say more often than not in leadership positions. I never imagined myself being a CEO or a founder of a company, but when the right circumstances presented themselves, then it felt natural to go in that direction. Some of the traits that I have that I think are suited for this are being able to organize my time very well and the time of other people, really having a keen sense um, of understanding, you know, how that how much effort should be being put in, and how to really um look, time is a currency, right? So how to spend my time in the most areas, in the best ways. What do I need to focus on and what not? I think this is super important. I think being friendly, having a sense of humor, not taking things too personally, which I'm currently working on. I'm not an expert here, but these are some of the traits that I find really important in a leader, and trying to be as hands off as possible. So understanding what it takes, but also saying, hey, I'm going to let this person go and run with it.
Nice. And that's a good segue into leadership. What do you look for in a leader? And with some of the companies you're working for, the leaders you're working with, what are they missing that isn't taking them where they want to be? What are they missing out?
I think that if you want to start something, if you want to have your own company, you have to be ready to be a public leader and not just a private leader within your own business. That's just what it takes now. And so if you want to bring something to the world and create something and give something of value to people, you better be ready to open up your X profile or your LinkedIn profile and start talking about what you're doing, because that's just the requirements. That's what investors look for. It's what customers look for. Building that trust. And I think a lot of founders or people that start companies, they've been hiding, they try to hide behind the brand or the product, and it just doesn't work anymore. So, because you have to ask yourself, how is someone going to find out about this, right?
Yeah.
It's not enough to just build something cool anymore. You have to think about, how do I get this into the hands of people? I have a lot of friends that they want to build something, and I say, well, what's your marketing strategy? And they say, I don't know, I don't worry about it. Well, you better think about it quick, because that's going to be, you're not going to make any money if you can't get it to the right people. So I think that it was possible when the world was less connected, when there was less, tools, when there was less ability to create. But now that everything is sort of being synergized and connected, you have to think about, distribution, or what we call this now, go to market, right? That's
Yep. Yep.
like GTM. We call this GTM strategy. How am I going to get my thing out there? So I think that this was once a conversation that happened, a year, 2 years into building something. Now I think that this is something you have to think about immediately after you know, come up with an idea for something.
Yeah. Yeah. Stephen Covey said, start with the end in mind, right? Exactly what you're going to
Absolutely.
do. So looking ahead, what kind of trends do you see in when it comes to B2B marketing, thought leadership, and how can companies prepare?
Yeah, I see trust and authenticity becoming very, very important, especially in this world that's going to become dominated with AI and AI tools. So um, I think that these we've always known that these things are important: authenticity, relationships, unique perspectives, things like that. But I think they're going to become heightened in the near future. So, what is your unique perspective? How does it separate you from everyone else that's speaking? What is that hill that you're going to die on? And how can you keep bringing that up and talking about it? A lot of people are afraid of being repetitive, but the truth is, marketing is repetitive. That's the point. You need to be known as the leadership guy. You need to be known as the social media person, or you need to be known as, the exterminator person. This is what you need to be. You need to be known, and it's okay to continue to repeat your message, but find yourself, find your niche, find your voice, because this won't be able to be replaced. So I think that just leaning into things that we already know works, is going to be extremely important. So authenticity, trust, relationship building. I think a lot of the content that's going to be created with AI, I think that's going to go to zero in a way, and we're going to revert back to, hey, was this created by a human? Prices of human-made goods will go up. Prices of, things that we know are real that aren't created by AI. I think that this is going to become more valuable in the future.
Nice. Very cool. I hope you're right. I really
I
do.
hope so too.
John, this has been awesome. I appreciate your time and your insights on thought leadership and strategies. If people want to learn more about you and learn more about Reverb and some of the products and services you offer, how can they best do that? What's your website?
Sure. My website is reverb.ws. You can go there. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active over there. So John Rittenberg, Rittenberg on LinkedIn. And yeah, all of the information is there. I use LinkedIn as sort of, a website and landing page for information.
Very cool. All right. I will have all that information. The time just flew by, man. I had so many questions I wanted to get to. I may have to have you
Yeah,
back on
I
just to
can't believe
satisfy
it.
my own questions because yeah, it was good. Very good. But listeners, hope you guys were taking notes. A lot of good information here. I will have links to the website Reverb in the show notes. I'll have links to John's LinkedIn page. And yeah, definitely share this episode with your family, friends, colleagues. If you are an entrepreneur, really consider your voice, your authenticity, consider your branding and your thought leadership, because all of those things are what's going to take you to that next level. So definitely play into that. Again, John, thank you so much. And listeners, share this episode and stick around because there's always more coming. That's it for
Thank
me.
you for having me.
Thanks, John. Coach Harlan saying so long for now.